Hello everyone, Gavin here. So I'm a little sick, which is why my voice sounds weird, and it's also why I haven't uploaded the videos I wanted to upload by now. I didn't want to record sounding sick. However, I was listening to Woolie's podcast to make me feel better. That would be the Woolie Will Figure It Out podcast, and I now have a head full of piss because he triggered me very hard. Okay, I didn't really want to make another response video to Paterwally, but I mean, I have to get this shit out of my head or I'm going to die. You should absolutely listen to what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about the third episode of the Wally Will Figure It Out podcast, where Wally is talking about a failed project. The reason it triggered me is because it reminded me of all of my personal failed projects. And now I need to scratch my fucking bones. Anyway, so Wooly wrote a story, and he wrote it around a large action scene where two robots were kicking the absolute shit out of each other. Now let's take the obvious statement that you shouldn't ever write a story around an action scene or anything like that. It's just an action scene shouldn't be at the heart of your story. Uh, let's take the obvious out of the way and let's talk a little bit about something more in depth about why he failed to finish this project and why the story never took form. So, I do want to take a small introduction about myself before I start rambling again. I've never completed a book in my life. I did try several times to write books, like actual proper novels, failed every time. I've tried a lot, failed a lot. Uh, I just don't have the talent or the patience, or I don't know. I don't have something that is required. And they were spectacular, colossal failures. I mean, I didn't even save those fucking things. Doesn't matter. I have been able to write a few short stories. None of them are published, and I'm not happy with any of them, which is why I've never shown them to anyone. Which, by the way, makes me a huge coward, but whatever. The point I'm trying to make is I'm not very good at writing stories. However, having failed at writing multiple stories and having failed repeatedly, and generally immersing myself in books and other media and loving stories and overthinking them tremendously, I did learn a little bit about how not to do it, and I did learn ways to fail. And Wooly has touched the number one reason to fail and one of my personal. Let's just say a lot of shit I did didn't work because I did exactly what Wooly did. And that is set piece writing. So, set pieces are generally anything you can think of. They can be an emotional scene or an action scene. So it can be two robots kicking the shit out of each other, or a man walking out of the robot with lawn chairs and cigars and just smoking them on the piles of the rubble. They're individual scenes that don't actually have a story around them. They're just really cool one-shot scenes. And that just doesn't work. It's the top billing for shit that doesn't work when you want to write a story. And okay, so how should you write a story? Let's go with this. A story when you write should be uncertain. You should know what's going to happen when you write it, and neither should the reader. Uh, Hopefully, if you do your job right. Anyone can have a big action scene in their heads, okay? I have so many of them, and none of them make good stories. Uh, a lot of people can draw action scenes, some people can choreograph it, you can make it feel epic. It doesn't matter, okay? You need to have a reason for it to happen. And you shouldn't invent a reason for it to happen. That shouldn't be the core of the story. It should only happen if it has emotional weight and investment in the characters and an investment in the event. And yeah, obviously you as the writer will be invested in your scene, but to get the reader invested in it, it needs to be natural. It needs to come out naturally, and that doesn't happen when you do set piece writing. So if you have the scene in your head first and you come up with the reason for it to happen, the reader will be able to tell and it will make everything feel fucking hollow and horrible. Okay? So I do want to say one thing. It is actually possible to write a story using set piece writing. It's not only possible, it's done a lot, and it doesn't. Okay, so the reason I say it's the number one wrong thing to do is because you can actually complete a story. You can actually sit down and write and finish your novel or your game or your comic book or whatever and have it fully complete and have all the set pieces that you had in your head in the fucking thing, and then when you read it, it all looks like shit. So it's not just that you wasted your time in creating something that's done now, and that is so disappointing you want to rip your heart out and throw it off the fucking roof. Okay, so let's give an example for this so I don't like completely talk in metaphors and hyperbole. Uh, there's a game, you may have heard about it. It's called Uncharted 3. Small indie game, you probably don't know it. So, Uncharted 3 is one of the most successful games I've ever seen complete that had this exact fucking problem. The game moves you from one set piece to the next. So you play in a cool area, unique visuals, and then you just move to another area with unique visuals. There's really no reason or purpose behind the story. There's no emotional weight. There's no major character arcs or reasoning. People just move. So the biggest example I can think of, and it fucking infuriated me when it happened in the goddamn game. You're Nathan Drake. You're doing something, talking to an old lady, and suddenly just get kidnapped. So you go to a ship graveyard after a dude hits you in the head with a plank. It's a cool set piece. It's very vertical. It's very fun to play. Completely meaningless. You don't have any connection to anything that's fucking happening in the entire set piece. You don't really have a plan. You never had a plan during the whole set piece. You just fight people, kill the last guy, go into the water, and then you float ashore. And, now it's the desert set piece time. There was never a plan. There was never a time that you needed to get there. There was never a reason for you to like. It's just there for you to play in the graveyard set piece. And another reason, another thing that you may know is Tomb Raider. I know, and again, another small indie game. I'm really asking you guys to really, go out of your comfort zone here. But hear me out. So, the new Tomb Raider, the remake, the one Rhiannon Pratchett wrote, it has a really nice scene in it. Okay? It has a scene where Lara Croft kills somebody, and it's her first kill, and she's very emotional about it, as one would be. Well, as most people would be. And it's a really good scene. It's a great scene. It's a set piece, though. What does that mean? It means somebody sat down and they wrote, well, okay, this really beautiful scene, and then they went, okay, well, where can we put this in the story? And they found a place to put it in the story. They wedged it in there. Small problem though. Right after the set piece ended, you gotta kill 50 more guys. So the whole emotional weight of the scene went completely out the fucking window. Why? Because, hey, it didn't come out naturally. It wasn't supposed to be there, or it just wasn't planned correctly. And because of that, like a really beautiful scene got wasted. And that's one of the problems with set piece writing. And the reason I brought up the Lara Croft example is I want to make something clear. A set piece doesn't have to be a big fight. It doesn't have to be two robots kicking the shit out of each other. It can be anyone and any. It can be any scene that you really love that's completely disconnected from an actual story or plot. It could be an emotional scene between two people. It can be someone understanding they're about to die. It can be anything, any single scene that you're thinking, oh wow, that's so cool, that's disconnected. That's a set piece, okay? Or two or three scenes, something small, something that's not actually part of a major story that's disconnected. That's a set piece. And yeah, you can absolutely finish a story using this method. Again, like I said, you will finish a story using this method. You will finish the story using set piece writing, and then you'll read it, and to use Woolie's words, you'll say, "It's great. So why does it suck?" And I think personally, the problem Woolie had, why he didn't manage to get the story together, it's not his art or his work ethic or the length of it. It's just that his focus was completely off, and it's a really big shame because I actually think somewhere on the 8 year mark of him working on this thing, it actually grew a heart. Okay, and that's a weird thing to say, but sometimes hearts take time to grow. And the weird thing is, like, I don't know when he this thing grew a heart because I'm listening to this and I'm hearing a version of it that is 8 years old, but it's somewhere between him thinking up of a big dumb robot battle and what I heard, this story got a heart. I did put some art to flash in the background while I'm talking like an idiot, by the way. This is Woolie's art for his project. Personally, I think it's great. I also use Stickman as my character avatar because I literally can't draw Stickman. That's how artistically illiterate I am. So, yeah. Um, I don't know shit all about art. Please abuse me. So, enough about why I think Woolie's project failed and set piece writing. How can we fix this? Okay, let's say you have a project or you have somebody you know who has this project and you see him using set piece writing. Okay, what do you do? How do you fix it? How do you get over it? What do you do? So, there are probably way more elegant ways to do this than the one I'm gonna suggest. Again, I'm a fucking hack fraud, okay? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I really shouldn't be allowed to talk about this, but hey, uh, YouTube hasn't banned me yet, so you're all gonna have to suffer. So the cure-all solution is fire. Fire is great. Fire is fucking great. You look at something, you hate it, you burn everything down and you start from scratch. It feels fucking phenomenal. At least for me. Maybe I'm fucking weird, I don't know. And the thing is, okay, remove everything. Take all the set pieces, remove them, put them in a bank. By the way, this is what you do with all set pieces. You don't actually write a story around them, but you don't remove them completely. You open up a bank in your head, okay? And also preferably in a Word document somewhere on a computer or a laptop or a voice file where you just write this shit down. Don't lose it, okay? But don't lose it. It's important. Just preserve it in some way. So you take all the set pieces that you really like, put them in the bank, and everything else that you don't need, everything that's not integral to the story, that's at the very core, at the heart of the story, you burn it away completely. You don't save it, you don't think about it, you don't even nothing. You press the delete key, it's done. Great. So what will you be left with once the fire is done and everything's clean? Well, hopefully you'll be left with at least two things, which is a premise and doubt. If you're lucky, you'll also be left with a third thing, which is world building, but sometimes the world building is just no good and that goes with the fire. Most of the stories that you read are an exploration of some sort. It's an author going to a place he doesn't know the answer to, he's unsure of what the right path of action is to take, and he's taking you with him for a ride. And most of the other stories, by the way, who don't take this approach are propaganda, but that's a whole other video. So there are a lot of ways to explore concepts and thoughts. One way that works for me is to come up with a question that summarizes the doubt I have, and then explore that question using a protagonist, creating some form of premise that I can use to explore the question with, and then resolve it through the course of the story. Or, at least attempt to resolve it. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you just can't come up with the answer. So, if you do this, I'm not saying you'll come up with a good story. Okay, I don't know how to come up with a good story. If I did, I'd do it myself. But if you do these things, at least you'll come up with a story you can read and say, okay, this isn't complete shit. There's actually something there. I actually put in some effort and I got something that, even if I'm not proud of, I can at least say I like. And that seems to work, at least for me. Uh, if a hack ass like me can do it, you can do it too. So, let's try and set Woolie's story on fire and see what we'll come up with, okay? Okay, so from my perspective, and this is an outsider's perspective, I don't know all the details. I just listened to a 1.5 hour podcast talking about an 8 hour, 8 year, Jesus Christ, 8 year project that didn't finish. God knows how many fucking hours he put into that, and Wooly, I sympathize, I really do. I I strongly sympathize. Anyway, if we lose everything about the story that we don't need, that we really don't need, we take all the set pieces, we say, you know what? We're not committed to any of them. We take all of them away, throw them in our bank, and we burn everything. What's our doubt, and what's the premise? Okay, so you're gonna have a human being, last of his kind, on Earth, and Earth has been destroyed. Humanity has been destroyed. He's it. He's the last dude. And the people that did it, the aliens that did it, are right in front of him, and he can take vengeance. Okay, he has the ability to take vengeance, and the question is, can he forgive them? Should he forgive them? That's a really big question, by the way. It's not easy, because forgiveness is fucking hard. It's necessary, in my personal opinion, but it's fucking hard. So, in my opinion, having an alien antagonist and a human protagonist separated was the first big mistake. When you're having a narrative, generally speaking, you want to give the hero a foil. Okay, you want to give somebody who either makes him look good or look bad by comparison if it's an anti-hero. So somebody who's kind where he's rugged, or evil where he's good, whatever, you understand. Somebody that will make the hero's qualities shine. And this story is all about, it's all about these aliens, okay? And you have to understand these are different aliens from the ones he met, but not to him. And end of the day, he has every fucking right to want to take revenge on them, even if they're not really the people who destroyed his world. It doesn't matter. He's still full of rage and regret and loss, and they're there and they're kind of responsible, though not really. And it's a really interesting case, I think, because if these were the original aliens, it would be really hard to say he shouldn't take revenge. But these are their descendants that are like thousands of years old, and I think there's an interesting conversation to be had there between him and the aliens. And you can't do that if he never talks to any of them, if he never interacts with any of them. So he should have someone there to talk with, an actual alien, to plead their case, to play with the hero and against the hero and be the foil to the hero. Or anti-hero, however you choose to look at it. This is where the world building that Wooly did actually comes into really great use. And this is not always going to be the case. A lot of times you're going to realize that the world building you did is counterintuitive, and then you're just going to have to burn that too. Fortunately, a lot of the world building he did was really good. These aliens are obsessed with humanity. They're obsessed with human culture, they're everything, because they feel really fucking guilty over essentially committing genocide. Let's say that the aliens are the ones who bring him back. Okay, he was stuck in some form of stasis. Alien magic, you don't really have to explain it. And they bring him back because they want to study him. They're really interested in human culture, and there he is. He's the last human, and they actually managed to find one that they can bring back and talk to and explore and understand humans better. That's really in line with what we know about the aliens from what Wooly told us. They'd want to do that. Okay, great. Well, who's going to talk to him? Not military leaders, not politicians, anthropologists at a university. That's who. So he gets resurrected, and he's taken to be interrogated by these anthropologists and one of them is going to be our antagonist. Or she's not actually going to. Well, I say she. You can make it a male if you want to, but well, the main hero is a grizzled war veteran filled with revenge. A foil to it would be probably better as a female character because we want her to be really, really compassionate, really emotional, really guilty about things she really never controlled, and fascinated with humanity. It would be really natural for them to start having a conversation, and he's probably going to be locked up, not gonna lie, because they know he's dangerous, they don't want him to escape, and they don't want him to hurt himself. He doesn't even know what the world is. And this is where they'll start having a relationship. Her, the antagonist, him, the hero, or anti-hero, again, however you decide to take it. And that's when you can learn about everything that happened, the entire history of the world that they have written, which I personally think is really interesting. And you can learn it all from the alien's point of view because she's talking about it to him to explain to him why they're, as a form of apology, really. She's apologizing to him about everything that happened. Again, really guilt driven. Now that we have that, we need to get him into a position where he can take vengeance, because that's the doubt that we have. Should he forgive them? Will he forgive them? And remember, this is a grizzled war veteran, probably has PTSD, probably has a lot of hate in his heart, and he lost the world. It's really difficult to say he lost the world because that's not something you can research, okay? You can't, nobody has ever lost the world. The world is still here. You haven't lost it. Look down, there it is. But some people have lost their world, and that's what he essentially lost, okay? He lost everyone he ever loved, anyone he was friends with, anyone he hated, everywhere he's ever been, his favorite hangout spots, his favorite flowers, scents, sights, everything. Everything. He's now on an alien world, despite being on a world that should have been his, that was his, and everyone he ever knows, everything he ever knew, is dead or alien to him. And I can't imagine, and no one can imagine that. But that's what he went through. So you can't really fault him for being hateful for these people, even if they weren't the original people that committed the war, even if they're just the descendants. Okay, so in order for him to get into position, for him to be able to take revenge, yeah, sure, let's give him a mech. Why the fuck not? He can get lots of other things, but a mech is fine. So he gets out. How does he get out? He either overpowers or tricks the antagonist so that she lets him out of a cage or whatever the fuck, force cage. You future jargon yourself into whatever you want. And he gets her to take him to a mech. Now, we need for him to have a reason not to kill her so that they can keep talking throughout the entire story. How do we do that? Pretty simple. We just need a gizmo, some form of thing that needs her alive. Like, let's say she takes him to an alien mech. The alien mech will only work. Oh, by the way, random thought. The alien mech can very easily be the Confederate statue or like the statue that Woolie mentioned. Not a problem. So now he has a really old, obsolete mech, but you know, still a mech, and let's say it's last of its kind. So anyway, we can say that this mech has some form of safety feature, where it will only activate if there's an alive alien inside the mech, as a form of stopping humans from stealing their technology. There we go. So now he has to have her inside the mech with him, and she has to be alive. Otherwise, he's fucked. He loses the mech. We now have our whole thing in place. We have the whole mechanism of the story in place organically. We have the person who we know who he is because we're going to be writing from his point of view, so you know he'll be able to also explain himself with the conversation that he's going to have with her before he gets the mech. We have the world building, we have everything, and we got him inside the mech. Great. So we have our premise fully checked, and we have our doubt. So what do we do next? Well, we just keep going, I suppose. I mean, he's not going to stop talking to her, or maybe she's not gonna stop talking to him and ask him to stop. But we are going to start with the rampage, or at least we could start with the rampage. Let's try and stick to the original woolie thing as close as we can. So we have him in the mech, we have her in the mech, and he starts the rampage. He destroys the first city. Well, there's now the time to get to the second city. And as they're going to the second city, she pleads for forgiveness. He explains why he can't, or he ignores her, or he hits her. After all, he just needs her alive. He doesn't really need her to do anything. He can even gag her. You decide whatever you do. It's a character-driven story. It's your character. You're exploring your answer to a very serious question. And nobody should tell you exactly what's going to happen, including yourself. It should come to you naturally as you write. By the way, assuming this is a graphic novel, because that's what he wanted to do originally, now that we've shifted the focus from Big Dick Mecha Battles to... By the way, I like Big Dick Mecha Battles, but Jesus Christ, those things are artist intensive. Now that we've shifted the focus from that to a more emotional story-driven thing, we don't really need huge city-destroying things. We can do the whole thing in 2 panels. Well, 2, let's say 1-page panels. First page, intact city, Mac walking into the city. You flip the page over, 1-page spread. The Mac walking away from the city, completely destroyed. Very strong, very emotional, very simple. You only have to draw, 2 panels. 2 big panels, but still 2 panels. Very effective in terms of resource management. And it can also be effective in terms of emotional appeal, especially if once you go to one of these cities that you're about to destroy, the female alien screams, "No, please stop, that's where my family lives." Okay, so once we've done that, let's go ahead and skip to the ending. So he wants a big mech battle in the ending. Fine, we can do that. We don't have to, but we can do that. Again, you can also just have him destroy the city. Let's say he destroys the city, because that's what Woolie, intended in the original. And again, you shouldn't force this shit. It should come out naturally. You should play with that around. You should stop and think, will he destroy the city? Won't he? Did she manage to change him? Could she have changed him? Did she change him? And this should come naturally as you write, the conversations. As you have the back and forth, maybe she manages to change his mind. Maybe she only manages to piss him off more. You don't know until you sit down and do the work and do the struggle and do the research. And the struggle and the research will kick your ass completely. But you gotta do it. Anyway, so let's say that we do this as close to Woolie's original intent as possible. He destroys the city. Well, okay, we actually have a scene in our head of him coming to terms with it after he destroyed the city. And we also have this alien who has begged him to forgive them for essentially the entire show. She's done nothing, well, the entire comic. She's done nothing but beg for mercy and explain the virtue of forgiveness and say, hey, we're not the ones, and even if we were, da 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 da, blah blah blah. Well, the tables are reversed now. Now he's the one who's committed a great sin, and she's the last of her kind. How about you have him, go out of the robot, set her free, undo her chains, give her a gun, and say, I killed your people, I destroyed your world, I killed your family, you're the last of your kind. You forgive me. You can also just have him give her a gun and have, the question hanging in the air, but I've known a lot of writers who use subtext. Every single one of them is a coward. Don't be a coward, Woolie. So this isn't the story, okay? This isn't the story that is going to come out of this premise and this world building. And it's a story. It's an option. It's a thought. Everyone, everyone who's listening to this, okay? If they sat down and they tried to write a story, would probably get something slightly different. They'll have slightly different results and different endings and different everything. Okay? The the conversations will be different. The interactions will be different. The ending will be different. The fights will be different. The choices will be different. Because that's what creating is all about. It's taking a small part of you and throwing it into chaos and seeing what the fuck happens. And he didn't do that. You can't do that with set piece writing, because with set piece writing, you know exactly what's gonna happen. You have all these really weird puzzle pieces, and all you're trying to do is instead of instead of exploring something, you're just trying to connect them, and that fucking sucks. It majorly sucks, and it will never end up being interesting. And I'm not a fucking writer. I don't even know what I'm talking, but that's in general how I think a story is made. Okay, Uh, it's something you need to do if you're trying to create something. And again, I'm a piece of shit hack. Okay, you don't have to listen to me, please don't. But if you're trying to make something, try and make sure that you're unsure. Don't really know pieces of it, especially not the end. Try to have a lot of doubt. Only be sure about how you start and a little bit of world building. And then just, instead of making the puzzle pieces fit, just walk down a road and see where it takes you. And, fuck me, I feel better now. Dude, Wooly, I'm sick. I'm sick, and you made me record this video because you triggered me so hard. You're an evil, evil man. How dare you? Well, at least now I feel better. So, I hope you guys feel better, and I hope you liked this, whatever the fuck this was. And, it's a fucking mess. I'm really sorry, but I have to publish this, or else I'll be a giant coward again. And I do hope somebody found this useful in some way. And thank you all for watching. Have a good one.